Hi boys and girls, today we're going to be learning how to make pizza dough, which is part one of our homemade pizza lab. So I'm going to go over the ingredients that we'll be using and the equipment for our pizza. So first, equipment, you'll need some mixing bowl, measuring spoons, dry measuring cups, a thin spatula, a wooden spoon, custard cups, liquid measuring cup, a cutting mat, and a large Ziploc bag. Ingredients being used today that are dry is all-purpose flour, sugar, salt, and yeast. Wet ingredients, 1 cup of water, and olive oil. Step 1 is to stir the yeast into warm water until it's dissolved. So I'm going to measure out my yeast, so we'll be using 2 teaspoons of dry yeast. I want you to zoom in to see what the yeast looks like. It's a granular ingredient, and we're going to activate the yeast by adding the warm water and the sugar. So I'm going to scoop out my 1 teaspoon, tap it to level, that's 1, and I'm going to take my 2nd teaspoon, pour it into my mixing bowl, and I'm going to add my 1 cup of warm water, which I've microwaved for 30 seconds, so we have a nice warm temperature, and I'm going to start to mix the yeast and the water together until it's dissolved. So notice that the water and the yeast are now fully dissolved. Now we're going to add the sugar to the mixture, and we're going to put 2 teaspoons of sugar in. The sugar acts as food for the yeast. Yeast, like I mentioned before, is a microorganism that we bring to life or we activate by adding warm water, which is its warm environment, and the sugar, which is its food. And it's going to thrive, and you'll now see bubbles starting to form. The yeast starts to release carbon dioxide, and that's what's going to make our pizza dough or the garlic knot dough rise. So we're going to wait a few minutes and let it sit. Next, we're going to add our olive oil. So we need to use 1 tablespoon of olive oil, which I've poured into the custard cup, so I can easily scoop it out and pour it into our mixture so far. Give it a stir. Now we'll start to add our flour and salt. So it says in the directions to add the flour in gradually. So it calls for 2½ cups of flour. I'm going to add 1 cup at a time. So I'm going to spoon in my 1st cup, level it off, pour it in, and we begin to mix. Now I'll add my 2nd cup, my 2nd 1 cup, level that off, pour it in, continue to mix, and we'll add the 1/2 cup, spoon it in, and level. Mix. And you'll notice the dough starting to form around the wooden spoon and coming away from the bowl. But we don't want to forget the salt. So we're going to add ½ teaspoon of salt. So you want to make sure you measure away from the bowl in case you over pour. Shake off the excess, add our ½ teaspoon of salt, and continue to mix. Next, we're going to turn the dough onto a clean, lightly floured surface and begin to knead the dough. So we're going to use the cutting mat as our surface. I'm going to take a spoonful of flour, sprinkle it on the mat, and spread it. I'm also going to put some flour on my hands in case the dough is sticky. Now I'm going to pick up the dough. If you notice that the dough is a little sticky in the bowl, add a spoonful of flour. Spread it around so it's easy for you to pick up. So you're going to collect the dough and place it on the floured surface. You just want to toss the dough a few times so it's lightly coated in the flour. And we're going to begin kneading the dough. When you knead the dough, you're going to think of these 3 words: fold, push, turn. So you're going to fold the dough in half, push it down, and turn. Fold, push, turn. Fold, push, turn. You're going to continue kneading the dough until it's nice and smooth. You'll notice that the dough is very elastic and it bounces back. That's also due to the yeast giving the dough its elasticity. You'll see what it looks like once it's done. Okay. So here's the pizza dough once I'm finished kneading. Notice that it's now nice and smooth. The last part of day 1's recipe is to place this dough in a Ziploc bag for storage for the next day. So we need to prepare the Ziploc bag by adding an additional tablespoon of olive oil into the bag. Then we're going to place the dough inside. Make sure you lightly coat the dough with the oil. And you want to leave some air inside the Ziploc bag. Close it. And then you'll label it with your class period and the kitchen number. You'll see the following day the dough is going to rise and double in size.